Right, so it's my podcast, and it's basically for Othello. So Act One, this is the podcast for it, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about Act One, Scene One. So, I've read through it, and I've got a few like commentaries that I just wanted to talk about. Number one, it's set at night on a street in Venice. Now, contextually, we know a lot about Venice. It's like a trading market. It's like an open place. Loads of, and what they call it, cosmopolitan. It's pumping with energy and stuff like that. And I think it's a quite irony that it's a street in Venice at night, if that makes sense. Like, you'd expect, Venice, you think of the day, you think of like the bustling and the hustling. So I think it's quite a juxtaposition. I think that's the first thing we see about the tragedy, like an odd twist, at night. And night is in tragedy, darkness. We've got all these types of what do you call it? Certain things associated with certain like settings, and night is a very tragic setting. It's secretive, ominous, like we don't know what's going on, why at night. And the fact that we see two guys having this conversation, it's intriguing. It's what's going on. And the first thing that we hear is Tosh, and Tosh being, it starts on quite a quarrelsome note, and we're very intrigued, and it catches our eye. And Rodrigo and Iago are having this conversation, and the first thing, so we go, Tosh, never tell me, I take it much unkindly that thou, Iago, who has had my purse, as if the strings were thine, should know this. And then Iago goes, "'Sblood, but you will not hear me. If I ever did dream of such a matter, abhor me." So they've started with this incredibly intriguing thing, and it's like Iago's obviously accusing Rodrigo's obviously accusing Iago of not telling him something, even though he took his money. And I think this also introduces us to Iago's type of to his type of character, wherein he's trustworthy enough to give money and give a purse, but at the same time there seems to be strings, that we are not aware of. And I think that's very much an Iago thing, where he omits the truth and is deceptive but strikingly honest at the same time. A weird dichotomy in his character. So Iago goes, "'Tis blood, it's blood," and that's the first thing we hear from Iago in the whole play. Of course, the play is called Othello, but Iago seems to be way more of a main character at times than Othello. And he goes, "'Blood." The first thing we hear from him, and it is a swear, and he is swearing on God's blood. Absolutely ironic, seeing that Iago is very, very far away from what we consider characteristics of God. "'It's blood, but you will not hear me. If I ever did dream of such a matter, abhor me." And it's a very firm statement. And he's like, absolutely fucking not. And that's just what he said. And we still don't know what he's talking about. So it continues, and he goes, "Thou toldst me that thou didst hold him in thy hate." And so we immediately realize that, wow, this is about a guy that they hate. And we see that this is like an ongoing thing. He says, "Thou toldst me," like he had told him previously that he really hated him. So this is not a new hate. This is a hate that has been boiling. And Iago's just like, "Despise me if I do not. The three great ones of the city in personal suit to make me his lieutenant, off cap to him, and by the faith of man I know my price. I am worth no worse a place." So Iago's here, he's giving us quite what they call it, a little a little thing there. He's like, well, you know what? Three great people, and I think this is another place where we see Iago is really trusted. If we've got three great people, off in personal suit going up to Othello, we know it's Othello. Of course, if you're reading the book originally, you wouldn't. But you've got three great ones who have up cap in personal suit. I think it's one of the first things we see. he is actually a really trustworthy guy. I think that kind of sews the tragedy in together, because we are presented, we know how inevitable this is, because Iago is just so outwardly trustworthy, if that makes sense. There is literally nothing, you can't you can't find any form of deception within his first speech. And I think that's the first warning we get in the book. um Three great ones of the city in personal suit to make him his lieutenant. Obviously, we've read this. So we learned that this is Iago's problem. He's not being chosen to be the lieutenant of who we are not sure yet. And he goes, I know my price. I am worth no worse place. So I get a sense that Iago here is angry at his pride being hurt. And I think, this is a real part of this play, pride. This is one of the reasons why he's really pissed off, like, because he feels like he knows his price. And then he goes, but he, loving his own pride and purposes, evades them, a bombast circumstance horribly stuffed with epithets of war. And it's quite ironic that he then points the finger at Othello. He's like, no, you're the blimey bastard that's all prideful, when he himself has just, I mean, it's not arrogance, but it's definitely a pride in oneself, where he says, I know my price, I am worth no worse place. That is a pride. But he turns the next thing and he says, but he, and it's like, it's rather ironic there, but in the same way it's so terribly human. I think, this is why Iago's character is so interesting, because he's so horrible, but also so slightly relatable to humanity. Not humans, I think, individually, but humanity as a whole, in terms of that pointing the finger while having, perhaps the qualities that you despise. Does that make sense? So furthermore, he goes, well, he evades them in bombast circumstance. He's just got loads of fancy excuses, epithets of war, using all this military jargon. He's just a bit of an asshole, is basically what Iago is trying to get along there. And then he goes, and in conclusion, none suits my mediators. And for certes, he says, I have already chosen my officer. And what was he? So here, when he says certes, he says, I have already chosen my officer. I think we see the beginning of Iago's power. Here, while talking to Rodrigo, he's quoting Othello directly. And I think what that does is it makes it seem more like accurate. It reinforces his anger, if that makes sense. It gives us like evidence as to like it. I don't know how to say it, but he does it so well, in which he kind of supports his argument. Like, we can't help but think, yeah, fair enough, I don't agree, but I can get why. Do you know what I mean? I'm looking for the right word, but I can't find it. Hopefully you'll know it later on. But he kind of backs himself up there, and it's such a persuasive technique. And he goes, and what was he? And you can feel the disgust in that statement. He is absolutely disgusted. He's like, what was he? Like, imagine I lost out to this. And we see another reason for his anger, that perhaps he feels that one Michael Cassio is just so much lower than him that is just irritating. So we see another form of pride here, I think, in Iago's character, where he just can't believe it. He's absolutely shook to the core that this absolute throwaway is, in his opinion, has, gained the spot over him. And even the way he says, forsooth, a great arithmetician, one Michael Cassio, a Florentine. The way he kind of just goes, one Michael Cassio, like, oof. It's just like such a belittling thing, like, oh, was he just counts, or what can he do? Just do some math equations? Absolutely rubbish. And I think, and also, you can pick up on the forsooth, quite a quite a little poke there at Cassio, and perhaps his more gentle nature. If we go back, you've got him going blood, an absolutely, masculine, absolute curse, just like blood. He's absolutely pissed off. But when he's talking about Cassio, he's gone into a more effeminate swear, like forsooth, like a little lady, like oh forsooth. I think that's a little poke at Cassio, and he does continue this type of insult, like comparing Cassio to have more feminine, gentle characteristics, and really using that to undermine him. I think he does that quite a lot. You see, Michael Cassio, Florentine, a fellow almost damned in a fair wife, that never set a squadron in the field, nor the division of battle knows, more than a spinster. And here he again, he compares him to a spinster. I think a spinster is widow, like no, not a widow. I think it's a woman that has not been married. So he compares him to like just an old lady that no one wants, basically. And he's got a fellow who was down in a fair wife. So he gets told off by his wife. So he's definitely a bit of a wimp, basically. That's exactly what he's trying to say here. He's trying to paint Cassio as this. It's just an absolute wimp. This absolute weakling who can only do equations is chosen over me. And he goes on, it's like, unless the bookish theoric wherein the togged consuls can propose as masterly as he. And so here he's talking like, oh, it's just so, he just knows, the theory of war. And, well, the togged consuls, obviously these are senators that would wear robes of peace, can propose as masterly as him. So he's saying, it's like if we sent the senators to war, to fight. There's no, you know what I mean? I think here we see Iago's anger. He's just really pissed off that, to him, someone who just has no experience, it's being, promoted rather than someone who does. And I think here we get a sense of Iago's power. I've been saying it, but he's just because when we look at it, there is a form of sympathy that blooms within, because some of the, I don't want to push sympathy for Iago anytime, but there's a relativeness there where it's like, oh, they don't deserve that, I deserve that. That kind of like very, I said it, human kind of like thing. And he's like mere prattle without practice in all his soldiership. So here, I think he really appreciates the value that Cassio might have. Like, he just does not find him at all valuable. And, I think here we do see that, we're painting Iago as this horrible, malignant character, that's just absolutely devious and cunning and intelligent. But, I think looking here, we also have some glances that Iago is just incredibly human too. He's like mere prattle without practice. His pride is actually getting in the way of seeing how some of Cassio's skills might come in handy. Even if you look at Iago, he is also at times mere prattle without practice. When he lies to Othello about the handkerchief, that was mere prattle, and that there was so much value in that for him. But here, his pride, or maybe trying to convince Rodrigo, you see, we don't even know, is Iago being sincere in this thing, but we see just his nature. And then he goes, but he, sir, had the election. And I, whose eyes had seen the proof at Rhodes, at Cyprus, and on other grounds, Christian and heathen must be lead and calmed. So, here he's just having a right pity party for himself. He's absolutely just irritated that he's lost his promotion, and claims, he's had these amazing glory days, he's fought so many battles, and he's just not got in it. And he's like, by debtor and creditor, this countercaster, he in good time must his lieutenant be. And I, God bless the mark, his more ships ancient. And this is the first time that we hear of Othello, his more ship. That is the first thing that he is addressed as. And I think this is something Iago does so well. He likes to remove the importance of people. Like, I think that's something that he does a lot one Michael Castillo, the more ship, he kind of removes the humanity in this odd way, this very devilish way. I think that's like something he does. And here we've seen another thing. I think Iago is also, his pride again is irritated that not only has he been rejected, but he's also now an ancient. An ancient being an ensign. He cannot believe it. Like, not only is he not a lieutenant, but they had the effrontery to make him an ancient. And not just anyone's ancient, a Moor's ancient. And we've got these like little racist epithets there. He's just absolutely not having it. He's pissed the fuck off. And he's just having a right pity party, and Rodrigo is just like, I think he also sees Rodrigo as a bit of a dumbass. So he's just like having his own little rant. Like, this is like his therapy session. That's how I view it. Like, and he also seems to be like, I think, looking at this, and of course I'm not gonna read out every single verse, but because this is one of the most important acts, I think, in the beginning, it's just, I really wanted to go in depth with it. And here I think we kind of see another thing that Iago is a bit angry about. I think it's also society as a whole. Like, we always see him hating Othello, but I think it's deeper than that. I think he just genuinely hates the way society is. He has so many problems with just so many things. Here we see that him really going at the lack of meritocracy in society. Let me continue to read on. He says, and then Rodrigo replies after him just absolutely going off. He's like, by heaven, I'd rather be his hangman. He would rather be dead than, I will be the Moor ship's ancient. And Iago goes, why, there's no remedy, there's no cure. That's what he says. Tis the curse of service. Preference goes by letter and affection, not by the old graduation, where each second stood heir to the first. Now, sir, be judge yourself whether in any just term am affirmed, am in affined to love the more. I got a little bit tongue tied there, but basically I think what's really interesting here is that he's gone, it's the curse of service. Like, he's like, well, there's nothing else I can do, I'm just gonna have to deal with it. But he doesn't just deal with it, does he? It's just a bit petty there, I think. And then another thing that's really interesting here is he goes, preference goes by letter and affection, not by the old graduation. And I think, here again we see Iago just working masterfully, because to an audience, especially if you think about it, and I believe this would be I think this is Elizabethan. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure, maybe like Elizabethan times. If you think about it, then you can see some people getting like, yeah, because remember the meritocracy system only came in with Oliver Cromwell's new model army, so you can see people in that audience kind of relating to this type of thing, and it makes Iago's problem seem so just. If you read between the lines, if we just go back a little bit, he says that 3 great ones of the sea in personal suit to make me use a off cap to him. So he's also benefiting from this preference goes by letter and affection. Do you know what I mean? And it's the way he winds his words together that people don't read in between the lines. Iago is just such a complex dichotomy of hatred and anger for things that he benefits from, if that makes sense. I think it's just so interesting that he's so irritated that people aren't getting promoted by their actions, but if you think about it, there are probably loads of soldiers that have gone to the same wars and probably killed more men than Iago, and they're not being, it's a very selfish thing, and he also doesn't think about how he's benefiting from the preference system. And I think that's really interesting. So here, at this part, we have confirmed that Iago does not like this Moor. And we've talked about the Moor 2 times now, and both times the Moor. So we do not know who the Moor is. We only know that he's the Moor. And Rodrigo then goes, after, Iago's absolutely gone, I can't stand it. He goes, I would not follow him then. And I think this shows a difference in the two men here. He goes, because Rodrigo's like, yeah, if I hated him so much, and I just would follow him. And that seems like, I think, such a normal thing to do. Like, if you don't like something, then just leave. But but Iago is like, Iago, he's just not for that. He's just so petty, so hell bent on revenge. And he goes, oh sir, content you. He's like, oh, happy you. I follow him to serve my turn upon him. I think it's just the difference in these two characters, and the honesty of Iago. Like, I follow him to serve my turn upon him. There's a full stop after that sentence. That is the only reason why Iago is following Othello. And I think, that also adds into the tragedy, this inevitable thing that Iago is following him to serve his turn upon him. Like, that is exactly what we are coming here to read. We are coming here to read Iago's revenge. That's it. That's it. And I think it's a really interesting line there, and such an important one, and just the contrast between, the two different strains of humanity. It's just impeccable. Then he goes on. This is one of my favourite lines. He goes, we cannot all be masters, nor all masters cannot be truly followed. And I think that sums up Iago's thinking just beautifully. We cannot all be masters, not all masters cannot truly be followed. And I think here he says nothing is set in stone. And I think here it's another little gateway to Iago's personality. He's duplicitous. He does not believe that anything is set in stone. He says it there. He says it there. We cannot all be masters, nor all masters cannot truly be followed. He acknowledges. And I think, again, you see, it's a weird comparison, because he's angry at society, but he knows how society works. In fact, he has quite a large understanding of it. And he goes, you shall mark many a duteous and knee-cooking knave, that doting on his own obsequious bondage wears out his time much like his master's ass, for naught but provender, and when he is old and cashiers. So he says there that, you might see these like absolute wimps that just love their masters, like they just work for them day and night, whip themselves, just for food. And then, they're old and they've got nothing to show for it. And he's like, whip me such honest knaves. And I think here, it's such a cynical but such a truthful outlook. He's not lying. He's not lying. Even now in the world, even in Death of a Salesman, you see it. You work and you work and you work for society. And at the end of the day, you are old and you are cashiered, and you're not a master. You've done nothing. Do you know what I mean? And he seems to really get this, and he seems to resent this fully. And I think he goes, whip me such honest knaves. He said they should be punished. They are like these types of people. They should be whipped. And he goes, others there are who, trimmed in forms and visages of duty, keep yet their hearts attending on themselves, and throwing but shows of service on their lord, do well thrive by them, and when they have lined their coats, do themselves homage. These fellows have some soul, and such a one do I profess myself. And here Othello, Iago just pronounces himself, he's a Machiavellian, he's an absolute, totally self-seeking, willing to do anything to line his coats, in quote. He's here he's just said it. And it's such a dubious but such a human, like, I think some of us can kind of look at Iago and kind of like, I think a lot of people want to do that. He's like, absolutely, it's all about me. I want. Do you know what I mean? And of course, it's rather like I said, self-seeking, incredibly selfish. But at the same time, again, it really draws upon that type of negative part of humanity, and I think it's like a caricature, kind of like a really intense version of the negative parts of humanity, that kind of self-seeking nature. And I think that's what Iago is meant to like represent, like an exaggerated form of all that is wrong, with all that is inconsistent with humanity. I think it's incredibly interesting. And he goes, for sir, it is as sure as you are Rodrigo. Were I the more, I would not be Iago. In following him, I but follow myself. Heaven is my judge. not I for love or not I for love and duty, but seeming so for my own peculiar end. And I think Yara is just such an intriguing character. He's just gone there. He's just gone there. Well, you know what? If I were the Moor, I wouldn't be me. You're Rodrigo. He's the Moor. I'm me. And he's absolutely differentiated himself there. And what he said is that we are all separate people. We all have our own desires. And he's gone there. In following him, I follow but myself. And he's so honest about it. It makes the inevitably of it's just, it makes the play all the more tragic. Because from the beginning, we are absolutely aware that Iago is going to cause trouble. He has said to us now, in following him, I follow but myself, and he has even gone as far, and this would have been absolutely groundbreaking in Elizabethan times, I can imagine, going, heaven is my judge. He's flung it all to the winds. He doesn't care about, the virtues that would have in those days governed how humans should act. He's gone, heaven is my judge, not those on earth. He's kind of like ascended himself there a bit, and he's gone. And I think also the inclusion of heaven is my judge there kind of gives the illusion, like, to the audience that, ooh, perhaps he's doing something right, then perhaps we can't judge him. You know what I mean? We can't judge him because heaven is his judge. And again, it's just such a good technique to make yourself so much more persuasive. Going on, it's like, not I for love and duty, but for my own peculiar ends. We've gone, he's doing it for his own peculiar ends, only his own peculiar ends. And then he goes, from when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart, in complement extern, 'tis not long after, but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve for those to peck at. I am not what I am. So here's where I became aware that Rodrigo is an idiot. Like, before, I was a bit, I was hovering around it. I was like, this guy's a bit dumb. But here we see that Iago has just said to us here that outwardly he might demonstrate the native act of serving Othello, that, he might have the figure of his heart, but in complement extern, he might show, that his heart is on his sleeve for everyone to pick up. But that is not what he is. I am not what I am. And this echoes, the very interesting, gives allusion to the Bible, where God goes, I am what I am. I am the I am. I am the I am that I am. I don't know the specific quote, but it draws on that, and it's kind of like a subversion of that, and it gives it kind of like a devilish undertone. Like, ooh, Othello's kind of like this malignant, devilish, devil type satanic figure. And again, I think I am not what I am. It's just such an important quote in this book, because I think it highlights the whole play, the whole tragedy of the play, that things are not what they are. That the deception of the play overall is what makes it so tragic. That things are not what they are until the end. I think that's so tragic. That's just so sad. Right? He's kind of, and through the whole thing that we see here, he's kind of gone, if we look back, he's manipulated everything to make it seem like he's the victim, but he doesn't acknowledge, his own dishonesty. He doesn't acknowledge his own benefits from the system. He's just. I just think it's so wonderful how he's done this. It's just amazing. I am not what I am. Full stop. It's like one little. It's an amazing line that summarizes everything I think we need to know about Iago. He is not what he is. And you'd think Rodrigo would catch on to that and like, ooh, perhaps he's not the best person to give my purse then. But no, Rodrigo's like, what a full fortune the thick lips owe, if he can carry it thus. So here we see some racist stuff, let's be honest, this whole book is a bit but here we've got Rodrigo just perfectly calling out Othello there, going the thick lips oh. And I think this is one of the another what they call it, another instance of them kind of reducing Othello to nothing more than his features, and presenting those features in such a negative light as to say that Othello is nothing more than the thick lips. And we become incredibly intrigued, as it kind of has a counter effect, I think, because obviously they're trying to like lessen his importance, but in lessening his importance it kind of makes it more important to the audience, because we're like, ooh, who is this Moor? Who is this goddamn Moor? Why do they hate him so much? And why didn't he pick Iago, really? We kind of have all these questions whizzing about. And then, all of a sudden, it kind of like, the story kind of like takes a turn, and it's like, call up her father. And once again, we're being introduced to something incredibly new. Who's her? Who is this her? Why are we calling up fathers? It's absolutely intriguing. He's like, rouse him. This is Iago. Make after him. Poison his delight. Proclaim him in the street. Incense her kinsman. And though he in fertile climate dwell, plague him with flies. Though that his joy be his joy, yet throw such chances of vexation on it that it may lose some colour. And here Iago's just being a bit of a hype beast. He's like, absolutely, just go out and make him pissed off. And here again, we don't know who he's talking about yet, but he's like, if you look at it, he's going, rouse him, make after him. He sounds a bit like Temptation, like, that ugly devil on your shoulder, like, he kind of like impersonating him there, just like, do it. That's exactly how he sounds a bit, and it's quite intriguing to me. And even when he goes poison his delight, the words that he uses, proclaim him in the street, incense her kinsman, he's mixing quite interesting words like rouse, make, poison, proclaim, incense. But words like proclaim, proclamations, announcements. So we are intrigued again. Like, wow, why are we plaguing this man? Why are we throwing such vexation, to lose his colour? We're intrigued again. And Rodrigo goes, here is her father's house, I'll call aloud. And here again, Rodrigo is just a bit of a deadpan, isn't he? He's just a bit of a dumbass. Because we see that Iago is just giving him this order. There was no please in that. There was just do it. And he's like, yeah. After Iago's just completely gone there, I'm a bit of an asshole. Like, I do not trust me, and I'm not what I am. And Rodrigo's like, really? Fine, I'll just listen to everything you say. Like, honestly, if anyone deserved to die in this book, it was Rodrigo. He's just a bit of an idiot. Like, I can't. He's just a bit dumb, isn't he? Furthermore, he's got Iago goes, do with like timorous accent and dire yell, as when by night and negligence the fire is spied in populous cities. And then Rodrigo goes, what ho, Barbantio, Signor Barbantio, ho. So we find out that the person that they're talking about, the father of this girl, is called Barbantio. And Signor Barbantio, if you look at the context, he's a wealthy man. He's a signor. So he's quite an upstanding, and we're quite surprised there. So it's like, ooh, You know, and for Rodrigo to even call upon Signor Babancio, we know that Rodrigo is also of kind of like an upper social standing. You know, we kind of draw the clues together. He's got purse, and he's also calling Babancio by his name. Like, you know, he's waking up Babancio. Awake, what ho, Babancio, thieves, thieves, look to your house, your daughter and your bags, thieves, thieves. So they're making this absolute ruckus. And then Babancio appears above at the window, and you know, Babancio's like, what's the reason of this terrible summons? What is the matter here? Babancho is absolutely confused, and Babancho echoes the audience, I believe, in this point. He's like, what is happening here? We want to know too. What is it for this terrible summons? Like, what is happening here? What's the matter here? You know, we want to know. And then Rodrigo goes, Signor, is your family within? Remember, this is all at night still. So imagine being roused in the night. Like, it's all very confusing, all very chaotic. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And he goes, then Iago goes, are your doors locked? And Babancio goes, why, wherefore ask you this? Zound, sir. This is Iago again. Zound, sir. You're robbed. For shame, put on your gown. Your heart is burst. You have lost half your soul. Even now, very now, an old black ram is topping your white ewe. Arise, arise, awake the snorting citizens with the bell, or the devil will make a grandsire of you. Arise, I say. And honestly, I can't hate Iago. He's just absolutely so intriguing. Just, and you can see it here. The way the repetition of that now, even now, very now, is creating that immediate image, that of old black ram, and it's just absolutely animalistic, barbaric image. Imagine an old black ram. That's a horrible image. It's topping. Even the words used to describe sexual intercourse, just topping. It sounds so throwaway. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like. And then you've got the image of a white ewe, like a perfectly white ewe that produces and gives wool. And it's like this image of innocence being ruined. And even now, he's like absolutely creating this immediate horrific image for Babancio, who's, remember, just woken up from sleep. It's the night time. This is chaotic, and his mind's immediately going to latch onto this. You know, we've got, so it's just such a persuasive technique, right? And then he goes, or else the devil will make a grandsire of you. And it's like this kind of threat that's, you know, we also send warning bells, you know, saying that the devil will make a he will make a grandsire of you. And basically what he's saying there is that, you know, be quick, or if not, you will have like mixed kids, you'll have like mixed grandchildren, which is the worst thing that could happen to you, apparently, from Iago's point. And you know, the way he goes, arise, it's like a direct speech. You know, it's very motivational, actually. Like, go on, Iago. And Pabanchus now, what, have you lost your wits? He must be really confused. Like, what, these mad people? And then Rodrigo goes, most revered Signor, do you know my voice? So here we kind of get the instance that, do you know my voice? We can't see them.
Mommy wants you.
And here again, like most Reverend Signor, he can't see. He can't see them, and that gives it's in the night, and he can only hear their voice. It creates a whole new, I think, setting for us, because another form of tragedy, that type of omission of information, like misinformation, the chaos, adding again to the inevitability of a tragedy, because if there is so much chaos, things are bound to go wrong. You know, you can only hear the voice, and you can also, drawing on the differences between how Rodrigo and Iago speak. I think Iago is just a lot more inflammatory, perhaps, you know, due to his social standing and, you know, his experiences as a soldier. But Rodrigo is definitely more refined, you know, with his Reverend Signor. I think the two work very well in contrast, to create more chaos and confusion, because you've got two voices shouting out in incredibly different tones these horrible accusations and things. Very interesting. And he goes, and you know, Bobancho's like, I don't recognize your voice, not I. What are you? And Rodrigo goes, my name is Rodrigo, And Babancho's, oh gosh, Babancho's like, the worst are welcome. I have charged thee not to haunt about my doors. In honest plainness thou hast heard me say, my daughter is not for thee. And now in madness, being full of supper and distempering draughts, upon malicious bravery dost thou come to start my quiet. So we can see that Babancho is just absolutely, when he hears it's Rodrigo, he's like, dude, I told you, you cannot marry my daughter. So here again, the audience gets a little bit of information again. Like, Shakespeare's really feeding us the information very slowly. And he's like, so we hear that this is, Rodrigo's wanted this girl. He's been coming to this specific house. This her is a constant thing. And apparently, you know, we've just learned that this her that Rodrigo's been pursuing is being taught by the black old black ram that we can only assume is, you know, the Moorship. So we're getting like, ooh, it's a bit interesting there. So then Rodrigo goes, sir, and then Mabancho is like, but thou must needs be sure my spirit and my place have in them power to make this bitter to thee. And Rodrigo goes, patience, good sir. What tells thou me of Robin? This is Venice. My house is not a grange. Again, you know, we're reminded of the setting, and it's like Venice. Remember, like, you know, it's a cosmopolitan city. It's a very cute city. You know, it's not isolated. But the irony of this horrible thing happening, this chaos happening in such an open and you know, it's very interesting. So he's like, he just doesn't believe him. He's like, what's this Robin that you're talking about? And Rodrigo's like, most grave Rabancio, in simple and pure soul I come to you. And Iago's like, zounds, sir, just like from nowhere, and he's in the darkness, no one can see him, remember, it's just their voices. He's like, zounds, sir, you are one of those that will not serve God if the devil bid you, because we come to do you service and you think we are ruffians. You'll have your daughter covered with a Barbary horse. You'll have your nephews neigh to you. You'll have coursers for cousins and Jeanettes for Germans. And wow, like Iago is just, he's so inflammatory. And it's also just such a contrast with in simple and pure soul I come to you with Rodrigo. Now we've just got him going in zounds. He's like, and he's not, the way that he says it is direct statements. He says them as statements. He's not giving options for there not to be. He's saying it directly that this is what will happen, and that is so much more effective in, you know, kind of like riling Mabancho up, because it's not maybe this is happening. It's not a conditional thing. This is like, you know, it's a direct thing that's happening. And he goes, because we come to do you service and you think we are ruffians. And he directly calls Babancho out. All the techniques he uses, direct, you know, speech, direct address. And he's like, you have your daughter covered with a Barbary horse, and that is an awful imagery. You know, you've got that type of like animalistic thing again. It seems to be something that Iago likes. I don't know why. You know, sometimes I think Iago, you're like, why the hell do you have that imagery in your mind? You know, it's just not nice to think about. You know, Barbary horse, and again, you know, that's a Barbary horse is actually a Northern African breed of horse, so it adds a whole new layer to it. So he's basically saying he's being topped by, you know, she's being violated by this horse from Africa. And he's going, your nephews will neigh to you, and you have curses for cousins and Janets for Germans. So he's like, if you don't do something, your whole family will eventually be animals. And it's just really inflammatory. That's the only thing I can describe. And he goes, what profane wretch art thou, is what Babancho goes like, what kind of asshole is this? And he's like, I am the one, sir, that comes to tell you that your daughter and the Moor are now making the beast with two backs. Oh! That was like really loud, but there we go, and we've come to the climax of, and I think the way he's giving this type of like, I mean, they've made Babancho ask numerous times, what is it? What are you talking about? You know, he started it off with, you know, old black ram is topping your white you know, and finally he gets to the point and he's done it so well, and he's just like, well, I come to tell you, after you know, Babancho is asked that your daughter and the Moor are making a beast with two backs. Even the way he describes sexual intercourse again there, you know, the beast with two backs, it's like not nice imagery, obviously. I mean, it's not, obviously it's not nice imagery. So, you know, it's like, so Babancho is incredibly, like, obviously he's like, thou art a villain, and I think that's just one of the most accurate things. He goes, thou art a villain, and Iago goes, you are a senator. And you know, I think something that's very important there is Iago does not deny that he is a villain. And again, in terms of tragedy and unity of plot, it's a straight thing. Thou art a villain. Iago does not deny that. And it's just obvious. We have our villain now. We have our villain. It's obvious. This is one of the main points of tragedy. Having a villain, this antagonist character, has been thoroughly set up by Iago, and and the way he responds, "You are a senator," shows that perhaps he even recognizes that he's a villain. You know, he sees it as, you are a senator, I am a villain. These are facts. You know. And it's very interesting. I think I'm gonna leave it there for now, because I don't want it to be too long. But basically, you know, at the end of it, you've got, you know, the lascivious Moor, you've got incredibly stuff, you know, like that. And you've got Iago running away afterwards saying, oh, absolutely not, can't be here. But for the most part, that's just like, you know, the beginning of the plays is one of the most important parts of it. In terms of the tragic storyline and stuff like that. And it really sets up the characters and their attitudes. So I wanted to cover it appropriately. That's all for today. Thank you.